The evening air hung thick with anticipation over the sprawling grounds of Donington Park, England, on this warm August night in 1992. 250,000 souls had gathered under the darkening sky, their voices creating a low, constant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very earth beneath their feet. The stage, massive and gleaming under the industrial lights, stood empty, waiting. In the distance, the outline of the Derbyshire hills created a dramatic backdrop against the twilight, while security personnel moved like silent shadows through the crowd, their radios crackling with updates. The air itself seemed electric, charged with the collective energy of 255,000 people who had traveled from across Europe for this single moment, this one night that would become legend. The crowd stretched as far as the eye could see, a living tapestry of humanity that pulsed with shared excitement. Teenagers who had saved their pocket money for months stood shoulder to shoulder with parents who remembered Michael's early days with the Jackson 5. European fans who had crossed borders and oceans mingled with locals who could hardly believe this moment was happening in their countryside. The merchandise stands had long since sold out of everything bearing Michael's image, but nobody seemed to care. They were here for something money couldn't buy, the chance to witness magic in person. As the sun disappeared completely behind the hills, the temperature began to drop, but the warmth radiating from the crowd kept everyone comfortable. Strangers became friends as they waited, sharing stories of how they discovered Michael's music, trading bootleg recordings, comparing ticket stubs from previous shows. The atmosphere was charged with something deeper than mere excitement. It was reverence, the kind of collective anticipation usually reserved for historical moments. Security guards, hardened professionals who had worked countless concerts, found themselves caught up in the energy, many admitting later that they had never experienced anything quite like the electricity that crackled through the air that night. Suddenly, the lights dimmed to absolute blackness. The crowd's roar rose like a tidal wave, washing over the stage in pure sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. For several heartbeats, there was only darkness and the thunderous voice of 250,000 people calling one name, their voices joining in perfect unison despite coming from dozens of different countries and languages. The sound was primal, elemental, like the roar of the ocean or the rumble of distant thunder. Then, through the speakers, came the opening notes of Jam, and a single spotlight pierced the darkness, revealing a silhouette that sent the entire crowd into absolute hysteria. Michael Jackson stood center stage, his iconic black military-style jacket catching the light, every sequin and buckle gleaming like stars against the midnight fabric. The jacket itself was a work of art, custom-tailored with precision that bordered on the obsessive, each button an embellishment placed with mathematical accuracy. His fedora cast shadows across his face, creating an aura of mystery that only heightened the crowd's frenzy. As he began to move, every person in that vast sea of humanity moved with him, swaying, jumping, screaming his name into the night sky with a fervor that transcended nationality and language. The performance was transcendent from the very first step. Michael moved across the stage with a fluid grace that had captivated the world, his feet barely seeming to touch the ground as he glided through choreography that appeared effortless yet was impossibly precise. Each movement was poetry in motion, every gesture calculated yet seemingly spontaneous. The crowd hung on every spin, every slide, every perfectly timed pause. When he executed his signature backwards walk during Jam, the collective intake of breath from 255,000 people was audible even over the thundering music. During Smooth Criminal, he executed his signature lean, defying gravity itself with the help of specially designed shoes and pure core strength developed over decades of performance. The roar from the audience was so loud it seemed to shake the very foundations of the stage, the sound waves reverberating off the hills and back again, creating an echo effect that made the moment feel even more surreal. Children sat on their father's shoulders, tears streaming down their faces as they witnessed something they would remember for the rest of their lives, while grown men wept openly at the beauty of what they were witnessing. This was more than a concert. This was a religious experience, a communion between an artist and his people that transcended language, culture, and nationality. As the night progressed, Michael moved through his catalog with the confidence of a master craftsman, each song building upon the last, creating a symphony of human emotion that flowed from the stage into the crowd and back again in an endless loop of energy exchange. During Billie Jean, the entire audience sang every word, their voices creating a choir of 255,000 that seemed to lift into the stars themselves. The harmonies that emerged from the crowd were not rehearsed, not planned, yet they were perfect, as if the collective unconscious of human musical appreciation had taken physical form and was expressing itself through 250,000 voices. Michael paused during the song, simply standing at the edge of the stage, listening to his fans sing his words back to him with such passion and precision that many who were there swore they could see tears glistening in his eyes beneath the stage lights. For a moment, his professional mask slipped, revealing the genuine amazement and gratitude that this global phenomenon still sparked within him even after decades of performing. The crowd saw this moment of vulnerability, and their love poured back to him in waves of pure sound that seemed to physically lift him off the ground. The connection between performer and audience was reaching heights that veteran concertgoers would later describe as unprecedented. This wasn't just about music anymore. It was about human connection on a scale that defied comprehension. When Michael smiled, 255,000 people smiled back. When he raised his arms, 250,000 arms rose in response. The synchronization was so perfect it seemed almost supernatural, as if some invisible conductor was orchestrating not just the performance, but the collective human response to it. Then came Beat It. The opening guitar riff sent electricity through the crowd like lightning through water, and Michael launched into the song's demanding choreography with explosive energy that seemed to draw power directly from the audience's enthusiasm. He spun, he jumped, he moved with the kind of precision that had made him the undisputed king of pop, each movement sharp enough to cut glass, yet fluid enough to seem like water flowing uphill. The military jacket, with its intricate detailing and perfect fit, moved with him like a second skin, the fabric stretching and contracting with each gesture, the sequins catching the stage lights and throwing them back to the crowd in brilliant flashes that looked like fallen stars. But choreography this intense, this physically demanding, tested every limit of both performer and costume. The jacket, for all its perfect construction, was never designed to withstand the full force of Michael Jackson's legendary performance style. As he executed a particularly sharp spin, his arms extended wide, reaching toward opposite sides of the massive stage in a gesture that seemed to embrace the entire crowd. Something gave way. The seams, stressed beyond their engineering limits by the sheer intensity of his movement, began to surrender to forces they could no longer contain. The sound was barely audible over the pounding music and screaming crowd, but those closest to the stage heard it. A sharp rip, like fabric surrendering to fate, the sound of perfection meeting reality and finding itself wanting. The back seam of his iconic jacket, stressed beyond its limits by the intensity of his performance, split wide open from shoulder blade to shoulder blade. The tear was dramatic, unmistakable, a jagged line of white shirt visible through the midnight black of the jacket, visible even to those in the furthest reaches of the crowd who had brought binoculars to catch every detail of this once-in-a-lifetime performance. For a split second that felt like an eternity, time seemed suspended in amber. The torn fabric fluttered behind him like dark wings, and the stage lights caught the white of his shirt beneath, creating a stark contrast that was both beautiful and startling. The dancing spotlights played across the tear, making it seem to pulse and breathe like a living thing. In that frozen moment, everyone in the venue held their breath, from the front row fans who could see the individual sequins on his jacket, to the people so far back they could barely make out his silhouette. What happened next would be talked about for decades, analyzed by performance experts, studied by fashion historians, and remembered by 250,000 people as the moment they witnessed true grace under pressure. Any other performer might have been mortified, might have tried to cover up, might have rushed off stage or attempted to hold the jacket together with desperate hands. Many would have simply stopped the show, called for a costume change, treated the malfunction as the disaster it could have been. Not Michael Jackson. Instead, he did something that demonstrated exactly why he was considered not just a great entertainer, but the greatest performer of his generation. Without missing a single beat, without altering a single step of his choreography, without even a flicker of concern crossing his features, he reached up with movements so smooth they seemed choreographed and, in one fluid motion that appeared to be part of the dance itself, pulled the ruined jacket from his shoulders and threw it into the crowd. The gesture was so effortlessly executed, so perfectly timed with the driving beat of Beat It, so seamlessly incorporated into his performance, that many in the audience initially thought it was planned, another brilliant piece of stagecraft from the master himself. The jacket arced through the air like a dark comet, spinning end over end, its torn fabric streaming behind it like a banner of resilience. It sailed over the security barrier and disappeared into the sea of reaching hands, each person desperately hoping to catch this piece of unplanned history. The crowd erupted with such force that security personnel later said they felt the ground shake beneath their feet, the sound so powerful it registered on seismic equipment miles away. It was as if 255,000 people had simultaneously witnessed something impossible and were expressing their amazement in the only way human beings know how, with pure, unbridled joy. Michael, now performing in just his white shirt, seemed, if anything, more powerful, more dynamic, freed from the constraint of the formal jacket like a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. His movements became even more fluid, more expressive, as if the removal of that layer of formality had stripped away some invisible barrier between him and his art. He grinned at the crowd, that brilliant, boyish smile that had charmed the world since he was a child, and the audience's love for him in that moment was so palpable it seemed to take physical form, rising from the crowd like heat waves on summer asphalt. The performance continued, but now it had transformed into something else entirely, something that transcended the boundaries between rehearsed entertainment and spontaneous human connection. What had begun as a perfectly choreographed show had become something organic, something real, something beautifully, imperfectly human. Michael fed off the crowd's energy, and they fed off his, creating a feedback loop of pure performance magic that elevated everyone present to heights they had never imagined possible. The very air seemed to shimmer with possibility, with the understanding that they were witnessing something that could never be replicated, never be planned, never be manufactured. During the guitar solo of Beat It, he gestured toward the section of the crowd where his jacket had landed, pointing and laughing with genuine delight, sharing the moment with them, making them part of the story rather than just observers. His laughter was infectious, spreading through the crowd like ripples on water, transforming what could have been embarrassment into celebration, what could have been disaster into triumph. The connection between performer and audience was complete, total, electric, a live wire of human emotion that seemed to connect every heart in that vast space. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible moments from the king of pop's legendary career. These are the stories that remind us why Michael Jackson wasn't just an entertainer, but a master of human connection who could turn even the unexpected into magic, who could transform any moment into something beautiful and unforgettable. The rest of the performance took on an almost mythical quality, as if the jacket incident had opened some cosmic door between the ordinary world and the realm of pure artistic transcendence. Songs that the crowd had heard countless times before seemed new, fresh, charged with the energy of this shared moment of spontaneous humanity. During Man in the Mirror, Michael's voice soared over the crowd with even more power than usual, each note seeming to carry additional weight and meaning, as if the spontaneity of the jacket moment had freed something within him as well, released some reservoir of emotion that had been waiting for just the right moment to pour forth. The audience sang along with religious fervor, their voices joining his in an anthem that seemed to promise that change was possible, that transformation was within reach for all of them, that even when things don't go according to plan, beauty can still emerge from the chaos. As the song reached its climax, Michael stood at the front of the stage, his arms wide, his white shirt now completely soaked with sweat that caught the stage lights and made him seem to glow with inner fire, his face radiant with the pure joy of performance at its most authentic. The incident with the jacket became a turning point in the show, a moment that elevated everything that followed to heights that none of the carefully planned choreography could have achieved. When Michael performed Black or White, the message of unity and acceptance seemed to resonate even more powerfully in the wake of his graceful handling of the wardrobe malfunction. Here was a man who could turn any setback into an opportunity, any mistake into magic, any imperfection into a moment of genuine human connection. The crowd understood this on an instinctive level, and their appreciation for his professionalism and grace only deepened their connection to him and to each other. Children in the audience would later tell their own children about this moment, about the night they saw Michael Jackson turn disaster into triumph with nothing but a smile and a perfectly timed gesture. They would describe the way the torn jacket looked as it flew through the air, the way Michael's laugh sounded over the music, the way the entire crowd seemed to move as one living entity in response to his grace under pressure. For many of them, it would become the defining moment of their childhood, the story they would tell whenever anyone asked them about the power of resilience, about the importance of handling adversity with dignity and humor. As the show moved toward its conclusion, the torn jacket had taken on a life of its own in the crowd, becoming something far more significant than a simple piece of clothing. The section where it had landed had become a pilgrimage site of sorts, with fans from other areas trying to make their way over to see it, to touch it, to be part of the legend that was already forming around this moment. Security struggled to maintain order as people pressed forward, not aggressively, but with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious relics or historical artifacts. The jacket was passed from hand to hand with careful ceremony, each person getting a moment to hold a piece of history, a tangible connection to the magic they had just witnessed. Many later described the moment they touched the fabric as electric, as if some residue of Michael's energy still clung to the torn seams and sequined surface. The tear itself became an object of fascination, with people running their fingers along the jagged edge where perfection had given way to beautiful imperfection, where planned performance had yielded to spontaneous humanity. When Michael returned for his encore, he appeared in a fresh shirt, crisp and white and perfect, but the memory of the torn jacket hung in the air like incense, adding depth and meaning to everything that followed. He opened with Earth Song, and his performance was even more emotionally charged than usual, as if the earlier moment of vulnerability had opened new channels of expression within him. As he sang about healing the world, about caring for the planet and each other, the image of him gracefully discarding his torn jacket became a metaphor for resilience, for the ability to let go of what doesn't serve us and continue moving forward with grace and purpose. The crowd was transfixed, many openly weeping at the beauty of the moment, at the profound connection they felt not just to Michael, but to each other and to the larger human story of which they were all a part. The performance of Earth Song that night would later be cited by music critics as one of the most powerful live renditions ever captured, infused with an emotional authenticity that seemed to flow directly from the earlier moment of unplanned human connection. The final song of the night was We Are the World, and as Michael sang those familiar words about coming together as one, the entire crowd joined in with voices that seemed to reach toward the heavens themselves. The concert had become something more than entertainment. It had become a shared experience of human triumph, of the power of grace under pressure, of the magic that happens when someone shows us how to transform adversity into opportunity. As the last notes faded away and Michael took his final bow, the ovation went on for nearly 15 minutes, wave after wave of applause washing over him as 255,000 people tried to express their gratitude for what they had witnessed. But the applause was about more than just musical appreciation. It was recognition of something deeper, an acknowledgement that they had all been part of something extraordinary, something that went beyond entertainment into the realm of human inspiration. They had seen a master at work, not just in terms of musical and dance ability, but in terms of character, grace, and the kind of professional poise that can transform any situation into something beautiful. In the days that followed, the story of the torn jacket spread like wildfire through the media and fan communities around the world. Videos of the moment were replayed countless times on television shows and news programs, analyzed from every angle by fashion experts and performance coaches, celebrated as a perfect example of Michael's professionalism and grace. But for those who were there that night, no video could capture the full magic of the moment, the electricity in the air, the sense of witnessing something truly special that could never be repeated or replicated. The jacket itself became the stuff of legend, its journey through the crowd meticulously documented by fans who treated it like a sacred relic. Eventually, it found its way into the hands of a devoted collector who understood its historical significance, but not before it had been touched by hundreds of people who each wanted to hold a piece of that magical night. The collector, a music historian who specialized in performance memorabilia, later wrote that the jacket represented something unique in the annals of live performance, a moment when disaster became triumph through nothing more than grace, humor, and perfect timing. The concert at Donington Park entered Michael Jackson lore as one of his greatest performances, not in spite of the wardrobe malfunction, but because of it. It became a story that fans would tell and retell at conventions and gatherings, a reminder that perfection isn't about never making mistakes, but about how gracefully we handle them when they inevitably occur. Michael had shown 250,000 people that night that true artistry lies not in flawless execution, but in the ability to transform any moment, even the unexpected ones, into something beautiful, something memorable, something that touches the human spirit and reminds us of our capacity for resilience and grace. Years later, whenever fans gathered to share their favorite Michael Jackson memories, the story of the torn jacket would inevitably come up, told with the kind of reverence usually reserved for religious parables or historical turning points. They would describe the sound of the fabric ripping, the split second of silence that followed, and then Michael's perfect, graceful response that turned potential embarrassment into triumph. They would talk about the way the crowd erupted, the way the energy in the venue shifted and elevated, the way a simple wardrobe malfunction became a masterclass in performance, professionalism, and human connection. For many who were there that night, it remained the most powerful live music experience of their lives, a reminder of why Michael Jackson was and would always be the undisputed king of pop, not just because of his musical genius, but because of his ability to connect with people on the deepest level, to show them that even imperfection can be beautiful when handled with grace and humor. The story became part of Michael Jackson mythology, passed down from one generation of fans to the next, a testament to the power of authentic human response in a world of manufactured entertainment. The torn jacket now rests in a climate-controlled display case in a private collector's home, carefully preserved behind museum-quality glass that protects it from the ravages of time and human touch. The fabric is faded now, the once sharp black turned to charcoal gray, the sequins dulled with age and the oils from countless hands that touched it that magical night. But still, visitors who come to see it speak in hushed tones about the energy they feel emanating from this simple piece of cloth, about the way it represents not just a moment in music history, but a lesson in grace, professionalism, and the transformative power of embracing the unexpected with open arms and an open heart. The display case sits in a room dedicated to performance memorabilia, but the jacket commands special attention. Its torn seam preserved exactly as it was that night, a permanent reminder that sometimes the most beautiful moments in life come not from perfect execution, but from perfect response to imperfection. Next to the case, a small placard tells the story of that night at Donington Park, but But the words seem inadequate to capture the full magic of what happened when Michael Jackson showed 255,000 people that true greatness lies not in never falling, but in how gracefully you rise when you do.